Cavewoman tries McDonald's for the first time and finds it very strange. Akka slowly opened her eyes, feeling a throbbing headache. The last thing she remembered was hunting a mammoth with her clan on the frozen plains, when a sudden snowstorm separated her from the group. She had taken shelter in a deep cave, and then, nothing. But now, the world around him made no sense at all. Instead of the familiar rocky walls of a cave, she was surrounded by smooth, gleaming surfaces. Blinding lights came from everywhere, with no apparent fire. And the noise, a constant buzzing, as if 1,000 giant bees were buzzing around her. Akka rose unsteadily, gripping her stone spear tightly. Her animal hides were stained with snow and dried blood. She was about 25 winters old, but her harsh life on the prehistoric steppes had made her look older. Defined muscles, battle scars, and piercing amber eyes that now widened with pure terror. "We're clan?" she grunted to herself, using the few words her people had developed. "We're sky." Staggering forward, Akka passed through what she didn't realize was an automatic glass door. When the doors swung open on their own with a pneumatic hiss, she screamed and almost threw her spear, but restrained herself at the last second. And then he saw a magical and terrifying place. There were creatures, no, people, she realized, dressed strangely, sitting on objects she couldn't name. Unbelievable smells flooded her nostrils, hot grease, something too sweet, unknown spices. Above her, enormous luminous paintings depicted food. Giant food. Round, golden, piled up in an impossibly tight way. Her stomach growled. How long had it been since she had eaten? "Excuse me, ma'am, but you can't come in here with that spear," said a uniformed teenager, nervously approaching Akka. She turned, pointing the gun at him with a warning grunt. The boy raised his hands. Okay. No problem. You can keep the spear." Akka sniffed, pleased with the young male's submission. She was a hunter. An alpha. Everyone should fear her. But then his eyes fixed on the McDonald's counter, and everything changed. There were so many people lining up. And at the end of the line, they received food. Just like that. Without hunting. Without risking their lives facing furious bison or saber-toothed tigers. Akka approached slowly, observing the ritual. A woman pointed to the luminous paintings above. She made sounds with her mouth. Then, she handed him something small and rectangular. And then, magic. He received a red and yellow box full of food. "I'll do it too," Akka murmured, determined. When it was her turn, the attendant, a woman named Jessica, according to her name tag, forced a professional smile. "Good afternoon. Welcome to McDonald's. What would you like?" Akka remained silent for a long moment, then pointed to the Big Mac poster above them. "Yes. I'll eat that. A Big Mac. Anything else? Fries? A drink?" Akka tilted her head, confused. Potatoes. She knew roots that her clan sometimes unearthed. But sweet potatoes were not common in her glacial era. "Everything. I want all the food," she said, gesturing broadly. Jessica blinked. "Would you like one of each?" "Yes. Everything." Sighing, Jessica began typing into the system. "Okay, this will be, wow, 147 reis." She held out her hand, expecting payment. Akka looked at the outstretched hand, then at her rawhide belt. She didn't have those royalties. She had sharp stones, a piece of flint, and some wolf teeth. Determined, Akka pulled out a wolf's tooth and placed it in Jessica's hand. "That's very valuable. Big wolf. I'll kill it alone." Jessica looked at the bloody tooth in her hand and screamed, dropping it to the floor. "What is that?" "Payment," Akka said, confused by the reaction. Wolf tooth. Very rare. Trade for food. The manager, a tired middle-aged man named Roberto, approached quickly. What's the problem here? She tried to give me a tooth, Roberto. A real tooth. Roberto assessed Aka with his eyes. The authentic and smelly animal skins, the primitive chipped stone spear, the complete lack of understanding of money. He had worked in fast food long enough to have seen it all: drunk customers, people in costumes, even a guy who tried to pay with chocolate coins. But this was new. Ma'am, he said carefully, you need money to buy food here. You know, those green papers, or cards. Not having green paper. Having teeth. Having a good stone to cut with. Aka was getting frustrated. And hungry. Very hungry. A small child in the line behind her tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mom, she looks like that woman from the museum. Remember? From the caves. The mother looked more closely and her eyes widened. My God, you're right. Whispers began to spread through the restaurant. People pulled out their phones and started filming. Within seconds, Cavewoman at McDonald's was being streamed live on 3 different social media platforms. Roberto, realizing he had a delicate and potentially viral situation on his hands, made a decision. You know what? This meal is on the house. Consider it a special offer. Aka didn't understand half the words, but she understood the universal body language of someone agreeing to give away free food. She smiled, showing surprisingly white teeth. The paleo diet had its advantages. Wise man. You're a good leader. 10 minutes later, Aka was sitting in a cabin, after trying to sit on the ground first, as she did around campfires, surrounded by trays of McDonald's food. Big Mac. McChicken. Chicken nuggets. 3 different sizes of French fries. Chocolate sundae. McFlurry. 500 milliliters soft drink. She gazed at the abundance with something akin to religious reverence. In all her life, she had never seen so much food at once. This would feed her entire clan for days. Carefully, Aka picked up the Big Mac. It was warm, wrapped in paper. She tore the wrapper with her teeth. Why did people complicate things so much? And brought the burger to her nose. The aromas were intense. Cooked meat, she knew it. But there were other things. Sweet. Sour. Salty, very salty. And that bright orange stuff that dripped down the sides. What kind of witchcraft is this? She murmured. Then she bit. The explosion of flavor was so intense that Aka almost dropped the burger. His eyes widened. His brain, accustomed to raw or rare meat roasted over an open fire, with perhaps a handful of wild herbs if he was lucky, was not prepared for the sodium, sugar, monosodium glutamate, and processed fat bomb that was the Big Mac. That. She tried to find the words. Very strange. But she kept chewing. And swallowing. And then she took another bite. It was bizarre. The bread was too soft, almost like air. The meat had a strange texture, very uniform, not like the uneven mammoth meat she knew. And that green thing. Lettuce. In her day, green meant bitter leaves that you only ate when you were desperate. But somehow, was it good? Her body, programmed by millennia of evolution to crave dense calories, was sending frantic signals of eat more of this. The meat is too small, Aka commented loudly, picking up a chicken nugget. She examined it from every angle. What kind of bird is this? A sparrow. A father sitting at the next table tried not to laugh. It's chicken, ma'am. Frango. Aka tested the word. I don't know. She bit into the nugget and her expression went through a complete journey, surprise, confusion, and then guilty pleasure. It's crunchy. Like ice, but hot. She devoured the nuggets in seconds, then moved on to the French fries. That left her genuinely perplexed. Is this a root? She asked no one in particular. But roots are hard. This one is soft on the inside, crispy on the outside. Aka ate a potato and stopped. Then he ate another. And another. And suddenly he was stuffing whole handfuls into his mouth, salt dripping onto his animal skin. I can't stop, she declared dramatically, with her mouth full. The customers around now watched openly, some laughing, others filming. Aka had become live entertainment. Then she noticed the Coca-Cola. Aka grasped the giant cup with both hands, as if it were a sacred artifact. She could see bubbles rising through the dark liquid. Bubbles meant bad water, swamped water that would make you sick. But the smell was sweet. Cautiously, she took a small sip. Her eyes widened as if they were going to pop out of her head. The sensation of the carbonated bubbles bursting on her tongue and nose was so shocking that she spat it all out, spraying Coca-Cola all over the table. It's alive, she yelled, jumping to her feet and knocking over the chair. The drink is alive. It bites inside your mouth. Roberto ran over to her. It's okay. It's just soda. It's fizzy, but it won't hurt you. Gaisfaciadu. Aka pronounced slowly. Is that magic? It's science. Chemistry. Chemical, she repeated reverently. Sitting back down, after checking 3 times to make sure the drink wouldn't hit her again, Aka took another cautious sip. This time, prepared, she let the bubbles burst in her mouth. And then she smiled. That's good. Strange, but good. After devouring most of his savory food, Aka faced his biggest challenge yet, dessert. The chocolate sundae melted slowly in her glass, the syrup forming small brown rivers down the white ice cream. Aka sniffed it, frowning. Is this cold? She knew cold. Cold was winter. Cold was death. You didn't eat cold things on purpose. But that sweet smell was irresistible. Aka dipped her finger into the ice cream and brought it to her mouth. For a second, nothing happened. Then, the cold hit her teeth and she groaned in pain. Ouch! Winter bite. But the taste, oh, the taste. Sweet, creamy, rich. Like nothing she had ever tasted. Milk, she knew. She had breastfed her 2 children, both killed in a bear attack 3 winters ago, a pain she still carried. But this was milk transformed into something heavenly. Forgetting about the cold, Aka began shoving spoonfuls of ice cream into his mouth. Within 30 seconds, he was moaning. My head hurts. My head hurts. It's an ice cream headache, shouted a helpful teenager from another table. You ate too fast. Aka held his head with both hands, rocking it back and forth. Bad spell. Sour food is a spell. Gradually, the pain subsided. Aka looked at the half-eaten sundae with renewed respect. You are a powerful enemy, she said to the ice cream. But I am more powerful. She finished the sundae much more slowly, savoring each spoonful, learning the rhythm of this new cold food. 20 minutes later, Aka was sitting in the cabin, surrounded by empty trays and crumpled packaging. Her stomach, accustomed to lean meat and the occasional root vegetable, was in open revolt. My stomach is making strange noises, she groaned, clutching her abdomen. The lethal combination of ultra-processed meat, trans fats, refined sugar, and gallons of fizzy soda was wreaking havoc on his Paleolithic digestive system. Roberto, still observing from afar, and already calling several media contacts, because that would be gold for marketing, cautiously approached. Are you alright, ma'am? Do you want me to call someone? Aka looked at him with glazed eyes. Good food. Strange food. But now I think food will kill me. It's just indigestion. You ate too much, too fast. A monumental burp escaped Aka, echoing through the restaurant. Several children laughed. She seemed momentarily surprised, then relieved. Ah! Evil spirit, get out. But the relief was short-lived. Another feeling, this one far more urgent, took hold of her. I need. Aka looked around desperately. In his day, you would simply leave the camp and go after a rock. But here. Bathroom. Roberto shouted, pointing. There. The door with the drawing. Aka ran, her spear left behind in her haste. She pushed the door of the women's restroom with such force that she nearly ripped it off its hinges. 3 minutes later, a horrible scream echoed from the bathroom. What is that white chair? Why is there water inside it? A brave customer who was washing her hands shouted back, it's a toilet. You sit on it. Sit on the water. And oh, there's a seat. More confused screams, then silence. Then, the unmistakable sound of a toilet flushing, followed by another scream of panic. Where did it go? The water swallowed everything. An hour later, Aka emerged from the bathroom looking traumatized but functional. She had, with the help of several female patients, learned the basics of modern plumbing. She returned to her cabin, where her belongings still were. Roberto had instructed everyone not to touch the stone spear, just for safety. Aka collapsed into her seat, exhausted. An elderly woman at the next table, who had watched the whole drama unfold, leaned over and said gently, "First time at McDonald's, dear." Aka looked at her, and for the first time, vulnerability showed in her hard, hunter-like eyes. First time, everything. I don't understand this place. Lights without fire. Food without hunting. Water that bites. A chair that swallows dirt. The elderly woman nodded slowly. You're not from around here, are you? No. I was. Aka searched for words, trying to express the impossible. I was on the plains. Snow, wind. Hunting mammoths. Then storm, cave, sleep. Waking up, here. This should sound crazy. But something in Aka's raw sincerity, in the complete absence of irony or performance, made the woman believe it. My God. You're real, aren't you? You're really from, when? I don't know how to count winters like you do. It's a very long time. It's very cold outside. Ice covers everything. The Ice Age, whispered the woman, amazed. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Aka spoke again, more quietly now. Where is my clan? My children are no longer alive. But I had a sister, cousins, hunting friends. Where are they? The elderly woman reached out and carefully covered Aka's calloused hand with her own, wrinkled with age. They're gone, my dear. It's been a very, very long time. Thousands of years. Aka didn't cry. Her people hadn't developed emotional tears in the same way. But her shoulders slumped, and she looked at the table. Everything died then. Everyone I knew, dust. Yes. But you're still here. I don't know how, but you are. And that means something. While Aka was grappling with his existential discoveries, the internet was on fire. Her videos had spread like wildfire. #Cavewoman at McDonald's was trending on Twitter. TikToks of her yelling, "Drinks are alive," had millions of views. Local news outlets were already sending teams. Roberto received 3 calls from McDonald's corporate executives, all asking if this was an authorized viral marketing campaign. When he explained that no, there was literally a cavewoman displaced in time in his store, there were long silences followed by requests for him to explain again, but make sense this time. Meanwhile, scientists, historians, and curious onlookers of all kinds were trying to figure it out. Was it real? An elaborate trick? Performance art? An anthropology professor from the local university saw the videos and nearly spat out his coffee. The clothing was too authentic, animal hide stitched together with sinew, not the modern materials they usually made them from. The spear was genuine chipped stone, not shaped. And the behavior. He called Roberto. Don't let her go anywhere. I'm coming there now. Professor David Chin arrived at McDonald's 40 minutes later, with a hastily assembled field test kit. He found Aka still in the booth, now surrounded by a small crowd of curious onlookers kept at a distance by the staff. Hello, he said, approaching slowly. My name is David. I am a scholar. I study people from a long time ago. Aka assessed him. Are you a shaman? Something like that. Can I ask a few questions? Over the next 2 hours, David gave Aka language tests, showed her pictures of extinct animals. She correctly identified woolly mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and woolly rhinoceroses, and had her draw their campsite. Each answer convinced him more. Either she was the most elaborate con artist in history, or she was real. I need to collect a DNA sample, David finally said. DNA? Aka asked. It's a little bit of you. Just rub it inside your cheek. He showed her a cotton swab. Curious, Aka let him do it. David sealed the sample in a sterile tube, his hands trembling slightly. If this came back with genetic markers consistent with European Paleolithic populations. Where are you sleeping tonight? He asked suddenly, realizing the practical nature of the question. Aka shrugged. Find a cave. Or sleep under the stars on a warm night. You can't do that here. It's complicated. Would you stay at my house? I have a spare room. I can help you understand this world. Aka considered it. This David seemed honest. And she desperately needed to understand where she stood. Do you have food at home? Try. No food from here. She gestured toward McDonald's. Still angry stomach. David laughed. No, different food. Simpler. Then yes. I accept. Before leaving, Aka returned to the counter where Roberto still was, managing the circus that his shop had become. Boss, she said formally. Thank you for the food. It was the strangest thing I've ever eaten. But I didn't die, so it was good. Roberto, who had spent 20 years in fast food and thought he had seen it all, smiled genuinely. You're welcome. You know, you'll be in our commercials forever. We'll call it the meal that stood the test of time. Aka didn't understand, but nodded. She picked up her spear and followed David outside, passing through the automatic doors that still frightened her a little. Standing outside, she looked up and gasped. There were no stars. The sky was lit with artificial lights, orange and empty. Where are the stars? Her voice faltered. Light pollution, David explained sadly. There are so many lights here in the city. But I can take it out of the city someday. You can still see them. Aka nodded, but something broke inside her. Her stars, which guided hunts and marked the seasons, stolen by these artificial lights. As they walked toward David's car, another terror she would soon face, Aka glanced back one last time at the golden doors. McDonald's, with its impossible hamburgers, living drinks, and chairs that swallowed dirt, had been his first contact with this strange new world. It was terrifying. It was confusing. It was very, very strange. But part of her, The part that had survived brutal winters and predator attacks and the loss of everything she loved, that part was curious. If the people of that time could make food appear without hunting, make lights without fire, make water swallow dirt, what other wonders and horrors awaited them? Uka sat on the sofa in David's apartment, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, though she still insisted on wearing her wolf tooth necklace. She was watching a documentary about the Ice Age on television. "That's wrong," she said, pointing to the screen. "Mammoths didn't make that sound." Lower, more like thunder in the throat. David, furiously typing notes into his laptop, smiled. "I'll add this to the records." DNA tests had returned. Uka was real, a genetically modern human, but with markers not seen for over 20,000 years. The scientific community was in an uproar. She had learned a lot. Basic English, although she still structured sentences strangely. How to use utensils, but she preferred her hands. That videos weren't windows to other worlds, but recordings. But some things still perplexed her. Why do people pay to run on wheels that don't go anywhere? She had asked about gyms. Why do men shave their facial hair every day if it's just going to grow back? About shaving. Why does everyone stare at small, shiny rectangles all the time? Smartphones. And, relevant to our story, why do people still eat at McDonald's when I now know that normal food exists? David didn't have a good answer for that. Sometimes, late at night, Uka would stand on the balcony. David lived on the 10th floor, which both terrified and fascinated her, gazing at the illuminated city sky, searching for stars she couldn't see. She thought of her clan. Of her children. Of her world that was gone, preserved only in stone and bones and, now, in the memory of a lone survivor. And he thought back to that strange first day, when he walked into a place called McDonald's and thought he had entered the domain of some minor, absurd god of food. She never came back. Once was enough. But sometimes, when David made healthy dinners with fresh vegetables and whole grains, she would think fondly of those impossible golden French fries. "Just one more time wouldn't hurt," she murmured. David, who was listening, laughed. "That's exactly the trap they're setting." And Uka, a woman who survived the Ice Age only to be nearly defeated by fast food, had to agree. Some prey were more dangerous than others.